I've always been captivated by how the story of Adam and Eve feels so complete, yet it leaves so many questions unanswered. What if there's something we've never heard? A lost chapter, kept secret, that could completely alter our understanding of the Garden of Eden. When I first heard about ancient fragments of a book that might reveal what happened after Adam and Eve left Eden, it really got me thinking. I kept wondering, could these hidden pages contain something that challenges our faith or even changes our view on the origins of humanity? If you're someone who, like me, loves seeking answers to mysteries that few dare to explore, make sure to subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. I have a feeling that what's coming next is something that will truly resonate with both our minds and hearts. I always believed that the story of Adam and Eve was complete on its own, but when I came across accounts of an ancient text called The Book of Adam and Eve, I realized we might only know a part of the narrative. This book, previously known as The Contradiction of Adam and Eve, or The Conflict of Adam and Eve with Satan, provides a completely different perspective on what happened after they were expelled from Eden. To me, that's absolutely fascinating. What struck me the most was discovering that this text is incredibly old, likely written around the 1st century. It talks about how Adam and Eve dealt with the challenges outside Eden, describing their battles with Satan, and even the pain of being separated from God's presence. It feels so real and human, you know? You can almost feel the weight of that separation and their desperate quest for redemption. What intrigued me further was the connection this book has with other biblical texts. Some believe that Paul, in his letters, might have been aware of these stories. In 2 Corinthians 11:3, he mentions how Satan cunningly deceived Eve. Could he have had something like this in mind? For me, this opens up possibilities for interpreting the Bible in a richer and deeper way. I think what makes this book so special is how it delves into human emotions, regret, fear, and even persistence in the face of adversity. It wasn't included in the Bible, but that doesn't diminish its importance. It's like a missing piece of the story that continues to tell us something essential about our faith and humanity. I have to admit, diving deeper into the book of Adam and Eve left me amazed by the details it provides. It goes beyond what's found in Genesis, offering a much more personal and emotional view of humanity's fall. The most interesting part is how it connects past events with themes that still resonate today. For instance, one part that really stayed with me was the description of Adam and Eve leaving Eden. The text says that as they stepped onto the ground outside the garden, they trembled with fear. Everything was different, hostile, lacking the beauty and peace of Eden. It made me think, do we also feel something similar on a smaller scale when we distance ourselves from God? It's like the text wants us to remember the feeling of emptiness and loss that comes with disobedience. Another aspect that left me puzzled was how Satan appears multiple times trying to destroy Adam and Eve. At one point, he even throws a huge stone at them, but God intervenes. To me, this story symbolizes how evil tries to crush us, but God always provides a way out. It's a message that even outside the Bible carries a tremendous spiritual weight. Then there's something curious. The text mentions that Adam and Eve had to live in a cave called the Cave of Treasures. I found it fascinating how this cave represents the contrast between Eden's glory and the harsh reality of the outside world. It reminds me that even when we're forced to live in difficult situations, we can still find spiritual treasures if we seek God. This made me reflect on how we handle our own losses and challenges. Additionally, the book tells a shocking story about Cain and Abel. It states that Cain killed Abel not just out of jealousy, but because he was in love with his twin sister and wanted to marry her against his parents' wishes. I was stunned when I read this. It's a story that exposes the complexities of human emotions, something that often gets overlooked in the texts we're more familiar with. Another incredible thing was how the text links the suffering of Adam and Eve with the coming of Christ. At one point, God promises that despite everything, humanity would have a chance for redemption through a savior. This connection between the past and the future made me think about how God never abandons us, even when we're dealing with the consequences of our own mistakes. And you know what's even more interesting? Some parts of the text have been preserved in different languages like Greek, Latin, and even Ethiopic. To me, this shows how this story resonated across various cultures over the centuries. We can't ignore the influence it had on how we perceive the fall and redemption. Another detail that moved me was the role of temptations. The text says that Satan tried to convince Adam and Eve that God wasn't trustworthy. And I see this happening even today. How many times are we led to doubt God's love because of the difficulties we face? It's impressive how these themes remain so relevant. In the end, I believe that the Book of Adam and Eve isn't just an ancient narrative, but an invitation to reflect on our own spiritual journey. It reminds us of where we came from, the cost of disobedience, and most importantly, the hope that God offers us, even in the darkest moments. One thing that made me think deeply while reading about the Book of Adam and Eve was how it portrays human vulnerability. I always imagined Adam and Eve as almost symbolic figures, but here they appear as human as you and me. It's impossible not to connect with their pain when they're expelled from Eden, dealing with a world that seems completely strange and relentless. For me, this brought a new perspective on the daily struggles we all face. The most impactful moment, in my opinion, is when God doesn't allow Adam to wash his body in the river near the garden. This made me reflect on how God wanted him to carry the memory of sin, not as meaningless punishment, but as a reminder of the importance of obedience and communion with the Creator. It seems harsh, but at the same time, it's a gesture that shows how much God cares about the genuine transformation of the human heart. Another strong point was Satan's constant attempts to deceive Adam and Eve. He goes as far as disguising himself to convince them that God isn't trustworthy. To me, this story echoes in our everyday lives. How often are we surrounded by voices trying to pull us away from the truth, faith, and trust in God? In the end, what remains is a message of hope. Even amidst pain and difficulties, Adam and Eve receive divine care, a promise of redemption. This makes me believe that even in the darkest moments, God never stops guiding us towards something greater and better. I keep thinking about how this story invites us to look within ourselves. Adam and Eve faced enormous challenges, but what truly changed everything was their search for redemption and trust in God, even after making mistakes. I see this as a reflection of our own journey. We make errors, we drift away, but God never gives up on us. What touches me the most is how this narrative shows that even in the toughest situations, there's room for hope. Adam and Eve weren't abandoned. On the contrary, they were guided to reconnect with the Creator. This is a message I hold dear. There's always a way back, as long as we trust and stay steadfast in our faith. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time.